When someone rejects you, they often expect you to fall apart, to plead, or to seek closure. But when you respond with silence, it creates a powerful shift they never saw coming. Your silence after his rejection is killing him, explores the unexpected impact of quiet strength. It's about how your decision to walk away without drama becomes the loudest message of all, one that he feels more deeply with each passing day. When he rejected you, he believed he had the upper hand. He thought you would chase after him, seek answers, and try to prove that you were worthy of his time and attention. In his mind, he expected to see you struggle with the rejection, maybe even beg for an explanation. But instead of reacting the way he predicted, you chose silence. That silence hit him in a way he didn't expect. It created a discomfort he can't explain, because it stripped him of the control he thought he had. Your silence isn't just the absence of words, it's the presence of strength. Without you saying anything, he is forced to sit with the reality of what he walked away from. Every moment you remain quiet is a moment he's left with his own thoughts, his own doubts, and his own discomfort. He starts to question whether he made the right decision. He begins to replay conversations, reanalyze moments, and wonder what you're thinking and how you're feeling. That lack of access to your thoughts, once taken for granted, now keeps him up at night. He was used to your energy, your attention, your care, your kindness. And when that suddenly disappeared, it created a void. He may not admit it out loud, but he feels your absence more than he anticipated. What he thought would be a clean break has turned into something that lingers heavily in his mind. Your silence challenged his assumptions about you, and your silence challenged his assumptions about you. It set a boundary he wasn't ready for. It reminded him that you don't need to prove your value to anyone, especially not someone who failed to recognize it when he had the chance. Now, he's the one wondering, not you. While you're focused on healing and rebuilding yourself, he's stuck in a loop of questions. Maybe he'll reach out. Maybe he'll try to reconnect. But by the time he does, you'll be in a different place. A place of clarity, confidence, and growth. Because while your silence may be unsettling to him, it's been a source of power for you. He may be haunted by the quiet, but for you, that quiet has been your transformation. Your silence is more than just the absence of noise. It's a reflection of his decision. Without you needing to speak a single word, he's confronted with the aftermath of his choice. There's no conversation, no validation, no reassurance, just the reality of what he let go. In that stillness, he starts to see things more clearly. Not because you told him, but because now he has to sit alone with his thoughts. The silence forces him to face the weight of what he rejected. Every quiet moment becomes a reminder of what he once had. He may try to distract himself or act unaffected, but silence is persistent. It creeps in when he's lying in bed, when he checks his phone and sees no messages from you, or when he walks past a place that reminds him of you. Without your voice to drown out his own thoughts, he hears them louder than ever. And those thoughts start to question whether he gave up something that truly mattered. This silence wasn't meant to be a punishment, but it has become a consequence. It's the natural result of stepping away from someone who offered genuine presence and care. Your choice not to engage, not to plead, and not to fight for someone who didn't choose you is what gives the silence power. And in that power, he finds discomfort because he expected you to need him. Instead, he sees that you needed peace more than you needed closure. Now he must deal with the emotional mirror you've held up by walking away quietly. It reflects his indecision, his lack of appreciation, and the truth that someone can walk away from him with grace and strength. And what stings the most is that he can't undo your silence with a single message or apology. He has to sit with it, and the longer it lasts, the clearer the reflection becomes. When someone becomes accustomed to your attention, it becomes part of their daily rhythm. Your messages, your check-ins, your emotional availability, all of it forms a kind of emotional safety net they grow used to without even realizing it. He might not have acknowledged it at the time, but your presence was a steady source of validation and comfort. It made him feel seen, valued, and important, even if he never said so directly. Then suddenly, that flow stops. The texts no longer come in. The care is no longer offered. And the warmth he once felt has gone cold. What once felt natural and constant now feels like a loss he can't quite name. It's as if he's going through a kind of emotional withdrawal. He's not used to this quiet from you, and it unsettles him. And his reaction is what I'd call faultying. He seems to falter. It may seem like he suffers from guilt. It may seem like he suffers from guilt. It may seem like he suffers from shame, and it unsettles him. The silence becomes a space he can't fill, no matter how many distractions he throws at it. He starts to notice your absence in the small things. A song that reminds him of you, a moment in his day when he would usually hear from you, or a decision he wishes he could share with someone who once genuinely cared. All of a sudden, he's aware of how much space you actually occupied in his life. And with that realization comes a deeper understanding of what he may have lost. Not just a person, but the emotional connection that came with you. This isn't about punishing him or playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy and giving it back to yourself. He didn't expect that. He thought you'd always be there, even after the rejection. But now, the lack of your attention speaks louder than any words could. It says that your love wasn't something to be taken lightly, and its absence has become impossible for him to ignore. You didn't beg him to stay or ask for one last explanation. You didn't try to convince him of your worth or plead for another chance. Instead, you chose silence. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you had finally realized that your peace was more important than his approval. That decision, quiet as it may have seemed on the outside, spoke volumes about your strength and self-respect. You chose to walk away with your dignity intact. There's a certain kind of power in not reacting. It shows that you are not dependent on someone else's validation to define your value. While he might have expected you to question his decision, your silence created a boundary he didn't anticipate. You weren't playing hard to get. You were showing him that your self-worth isn't up for negotiation. That kind of clarity unsettles people who are used to being chased or forgiven easily. What he might have mistaken for indifference was actually a form of growth. You stopped trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix. You realized that your role wasn't to prove yourself to someone who couldn't recognize your value when it mattered. And in doing so, you built a boundary that said, I deserve more than this. That boundary, though invisible, became the loudest statement of all. It's the line he now sees clearly, one he never imagined you would draw. Now, whether he admits it or not, he's faced with the reality that you chose yourself. And that choice demands respect. Not everyone has the strength to walk away without creating chaos, but you did. And that kind of quiet strength leaves a lasting impression, one that lingers far longer than any words ever could. When he rejected you, a part of him believed you wouldn't handle it well. Maybe he thought you'd fall apart, reach out, or try to convince him to change his mind. His ego quietly fed off that expectation. It gave him a false sense of control, the kind that comes from thinking he was the one with the final say. He assumed that your emotions would work in his favor, and that you'd struggle to let go without some kind of closure or response from him. But when you didn't chase after him or beg for another chance, it shook that belief. Instead of falling into pieces, you remained calm. Instead of reacting impulsively, you chose silence. He didn't expect you to hold yourself together with that much grace and restraint. And in that silence, he found something he wasn't ready for. A version of you that was far stronger and more self-assured than he imagined. That quiet strength started to challenge everything he thought he understood about you. It made him reconsider the way he saw your role in the relationship and question whether he ever really knew you. More importantly, it forced him to look inward and wonder if he underestimated not just you, but also the weight of his own actions. When someone expects you to break and you don't, it doesn't just surprise them, it unsettles them. Now, that bruised ego lingers beneath the surface. He might act unaffected or pretend that your silence means nothing, but deep down, he's wrestling with the discomfort of being wrong. Your resilience speaks louder than any words could have. It redefined the dynamic and left him wondering whether he let go of someone who was never actually beneath him, but far beyond what he was ready to handle. Your silence wasn't a sign of weakness or confusion. It was a declaration of strength. When someone walks away from you, expecting drama, expecting an emotional plea, and instead they're met with nothing but calm and quiet, it speaks louder than any words ever could. You didn't try to justify yourself. You didn't try to prove your worth. And that alone changed the story. You took back your power the moment you chose peace over chaos, dignity over desperation. There's something unforgettable about a person who doesn't beg to be chosen. It lingers. It creates a space in the other person's mind that's impossible to ignore. He expected emotions, maybe even a breakdown, but what he got was silence. And in that silence, he was forced to see you clearly for the first time. He saw a version of you that wasn't needy or fragile, but grounded, calm, and whole. That image stays with him because it's not what he thought he'd see. People often confuse silence with passivity, but the truth is, silence is one of the most powerful moves you can make when it's coming from a place of self-respect. It shows that you don't need to explain why you deserved better because your actions already say it. You created a boundary without raising your voice, and that boundary quietly demanded more respect than 1,000 conversations ever could. You didn't need to win an argument, you won by choosing yourself. Now, whether he admits it or not, that moment of you walking away without a word continues to echo in his thoughts. That moment of you walking away without a word continues to echo in his thought, because while loud reactions can be forgotten, calm exits tend to haunt the most. You didn't just walk away from him, you walked into a stronger version of yourself. And that quiet departure left behind a silence he can't stop hearing. While you're focusing on healing and rebuilding your sense of self, he's quietly wrestling with a growing list of questions he never expected to ask. He assumed he would move on easily, that the rejection would close a chapter without much thought. But instead, your silence has created an open loop in his mind, one that keeps spinning with uncertainty. He starts to wonder if he misjudged the situation, if perhaps there was more value in what you shared than he was willing to admit at the time. Your absence creates a void that conversation can't fill. There's no message from you to ease his doubts, no emotional reaction to confirm his assumptions. And because he no longer has access to your thoughts or feelings, he's left alone with his own. That's when the doubt creeps in. Did he make a mistake? Was there something real between you that he failed to nurture? And most haunting of all, why haven't you reached out? That question, quiet as it may seem, starts to echo louder than anything he heard while you were still present. This emotional shift catches him off guard. At first, he might have felt secure in his decision, confident in the idea that he had all the clarity he needed. But now that you've disappeared without resistance, he realizes he lost something meaningful, and he never even had the chance to fully understand it. Suddenly, he's the one replaying memories, reading into past conversations, and wondering what he missed. Your silence becomes the mystery he can't solve. In this new dynamic, the emotional roles are reversed. You're not the one stuck in the past, he is. You're not questioning your worth anymore. He's beginning to question his choices. And all of this is happening without a single word from you. That's the beauty and the power of self-respect. It doesn't beg for attention, yet it shifts everything. It makes him see what he couldn't see before, and by the time he figures it out, you've already moved on. He didn't just lose your words, he lost the entire atmosphere you created in his life. There's a noticeable difference now in the spaces where you used to exist. The conversations feel emptier, the silence heavier, and the comfort of knowing someone truly cared is now missing. He may have taken it for granted before, but now that it's gone, it becomes clear how deeply your presence once filled the emotional corners of his world. The absence of your energy is not just something he notices, it's something he feels. It's in the little things he used to ignore. The way you laughed at his jokes, how you listened without judgment, how your encouragement gave him a quiet confidence. These things didn't seem like much to him then, but now, every time he doesn't hear them, he realizes how important they were. Without your voice and your warmth, the world around him feels just a bit colder and more detached. There's a certain echo that lingers when someone like you disappears without a dramatic goodbye. It's not loud, but it's persistent. It creeps into his thoughts when he's alone, when he revisits a place you both once shared, or even when he hears something that reminds him of you. It's not just that you're gone, it's that everything feels off without you. That emptiness makes him aware of how valuable your presence truly was. What haunts him most is that he didn't realize this while he still had access to you. He thought your light was permanent, something that would always be there, even if he dimmed it now and then. But now he sees that your absence isn't just silence, it's a message. It's the quiet aftermath of someone who gave genuinely and left without needing to prove a point. And that quiet, it speaks to him in a way your words never had to. You're not staying silent to hurt him or get revenge. This isn't a strategy or a game you're playing to make him miss you or regret his decision. The truth is, your silence comes from a place of growth. You've reached a point where you no longer need to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it clearly. Instead of pouring more energy into something that didn't value you fully, you've chosen to redirect that energy toward yourself. It's a quiet but powerful decision to no longer chase after answers or validation. You're not seeking to teach him a lesson or manipulate his feelings. You're simply choosing to heal in peace. That peace has become more valuable than anything he could now offer. And while he may be wondering why you haven't reacted, it's because you've grown past the point of needing his acknowledgement to move forward. This kind of silence can't be faked. It only comes when someone has gone through enough disappointment to finally understand what they deserve. You're not waiting for him to notice you're gone. You've already accepted that your story with him doesn't need a dramatic ending. You don't need closure from him because you found it within yourself. That sense of calm may confuse him, especially if he expected anger or sadness, but it's exactly what sets you apart. You're not holding back words out of bitterness. You're staying quiet because your peace speaks louder than confrontation ever could. It's the silence of someone who has chosen themselves, someone who no longer finds comfort in places that once caused pain. And while that silence may be unsettling to him, for you, it's the sound of freedom. If he ever decides to return, he won't find the same version of you he once knew. The person who once waited for answers, who stayed available despite the rejection, who kept the door slightly open, just in case, she doesn't exist in the same way anymore. In the space that followed his silence and distance, you didn't freeze or remain stuck. You evolved. You took the pain, the confusion, and the heartbreak, and you used it as fuel to grow into someone stronger, someone clearer about what she truly deserves. Your silence wasn't just an empty reaction to being hurt. It became the environment where you healed. You stopped looking outward for closure and started looking inward for peace. You began to understand that someone's rejection doesn't define your worth, and slowly the emotional grip he once had on you loosened. While he may have been expecting you to remain where he left you, emotionally and mentally, you've been moving forward in ways he can't see. What he doesn't realize is that time away from him hasn't been about waiting, it's been about rediscovery. You've learned how to stand on your own again, how to find joy and fulfillment without needing his presence. You've reconnected with the parts of yourself that were overlooked while you were busy trying to be enough for him. And in that process, you've built a new foundation, one where you no longer settle for emotional breadcrumbs or half-hearted efforts. So if he does come back, he may expect the same comfort, the same version of you who was once so available. But what he'll face instead is someone who has outgrown the old dynamic entirely, not out of spite, but because you've stepped into a better understanding of your own value. And that version of you may no longer have space for someone who only realized your worth after you went silent.